because part of the reason that people won't fully be themselves is they're afraid of what other people might think. So I won't fully be me because somebody might not like this thing about that. But when you are happy from within and you know yourself and you accept yourself and you love yourself, then you know you're not going to be the person for everybody. And that's okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Notes. I want to apologize for this coming out a few days later, but I was traveling last Friday. I went to a conference. You're going to see that conference, the Jolt conference, put up by my friends at Snappy Kraken. If you're not a financial advisor, you don't know that company, but a great conference with a lot of great advisors. Some of the daily notes from that conference and beyond, you'll see some reference to it. So I didn't want to skip an episode, so we'll get to this week. But let's get to the notes from April 29th through May 5th and kind of break those down and give you some more insight with them. And we're going to start with the 29th, which was titled Find Your Why. And it starts with a great quote from Viktor Frankl that I want to start with here. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. And if you think about Viktor's background with the Holocaust and what he saw, what he studied, you understand the why to live and how powerful that can be. And obviously, as we talk about a pursuit, hopefully you don't have to ever experience anything along those needs for a why. But if we think about your pursuit, you need to have a why behind it. And if you look at the guests on our Pursuit podcast, when I talk to them about their passions, every single one of them define their passion as something they would do for free. If they enjoy doing it, they've found a way to monetize it in some way that's material to their life, but at the end of the day, they don't do it for the money, the financial benefit. They do it for the love, they do it for the passion. That is their why. So as you begin to think about your passion, and you think about your pursuit, and you think about your authentic life, really have an idea of what your why is and make sure that it's very strong. Because as I mentioned in here, in this post, I say an hour spent on your passion is not the same as an hour spent on a chore, task, or maybe even your job. So if you think about that, if you're doing something that you can't stand, there's no excitement behind it, 1 hour seems like a very long time. I used to hate cutting the grass. 1 hour of cutting the grass seemed like 3. But if I'm doing something that I really enjoy, the time flies by and 1 hour is nothing. So you can work really, really hard doing something that you love and it doesn't feel the same. So if you want to build a life that is, leading you towards your authentic life, a life that is maximizing your happiness and your time and your energy, make sure that you're trying to do as many things as possible that you have that passion for. Now, you may not be able to do everything that way, and your career may not be that way either, but that should be the goal. The goal should be that when you are quote-unquote working, whether that is a chore or your job again, whenever you're doing work, hopefully it does not feel like work. And therefore, you can do it enjoying it. You're not worrying about the compensation side of things, and you're not worrying about trying to get to the next thing. You're in the moment, you're present, and when you're doing that, you're most likely going to be your best, putting out your best work. So that is what I wanted you to think about with that quote is, Victor's talking about living. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. Let's strip that down and not make it as intense and just say, you want to have a why for the things that you're doing so that way when it gets hard or the work is hard, it doesn't feel that way. It's a lot easier to push through when you have a very strong conviction behind why you're doing it, the how part of things. So find that why and try to build as many important whys into your life as possible. All right, so the next one we go to is the stop worrying about what you cannot control. And we've talked about this lots of different times, but just as I was thinking about it and I was meditating that morning, just so many times we spend energy on things we can't control. As a financial advisor, a lot of times people want to talk about the markets and the economy and the Federal Reserve and all these things we have no control over. Yes, they impact our life in the moment, but we can't control them. So why spend energy on things that we can't control and we can't even influence the outcome? It's just a waste of energy. And I wrote in the past about how I had a big shift between looking at time versus energy. For whatever reason, I'm more likely to waste time. When I think about my energy, I'm not willing to waste my energy. And when I wrote about this, I ultimately realized that I can't feel time pass by. I see it change on the clock and I understand that, but I feel my energy dwindle as the day goes on. So I only have so much energy to give. Do I want to dedicate it towards something I can't change, or do I want to dedicate towards things that I do have control over and things that are going to move me further along in my pursuit and closer to my authentic life? So I think that, no, I'm not going to say I think, don't worry about things you can't control. It doesn't mean become ignorant and don't pay attention to the news and don't pay attention to what's going on. That's not what I'm saying. know what's going on, understand what's going on, and then realize that you can't influence, so don't dedicate more energy to it. Enough energy to understand, process it, make changes if you need to, if it really does have an impact minor on you, and then focus on the things that you can control, because those are going to have a greater outcome and influence on your pursuit towards your authentic life, which is what we're all after anyways. Short and sweet one on the 30th. All right, let's go to the first, the fluidity of your authentic life. As I think about this concept of the authentic life and how I talk about it, I sometimes fear that it may come across as I think of the authentic life as an end. Like, this is where we need to get to, is the authentic life, and then we're done. And the reality of it is your authentic life is fluid. It's going to change as time goes on. So your authentic life is a moving target, if you will, and it's something that you can move with it along the way. So the key to this is, there's a famous quote from Bruce Lee that you've probably heard before. I'm going to read it to make sure I get it right. But Bruce Lee said, "You must be shapeless, formless like water. When you pour water in a cup, it becomes the cup. When you pour water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. When you pour water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can drip and it can crash. Be like water, my friend." I think you should take that to your authentic life. Once you align your spirit, mind, and body, your money comes into play and aligns with that as well, and you found your authentic life, continue to follow your passions, continue to listen to your heart, check your intuition, and flow with what your authentic life is doing. Follow that lead and go with it, because it's going to continue to steer you where you're supposed to be. When you resist it, when you don't want to make those changes, that's when you fall off the path of your authentic life, and you fall back into the rut of following somebody else's path, living underneath somebody else's definitions of success. So be fluid, be water, as Bruce Lee says, and go with your authentic life. Don't necessarily fight it. Now, I know it's not always easy to do. Hopefully the changes that come to you on your authentic life are ones you want to go with, but inevitably there's going to be some that aren't necessarily what you think you want to be doing. You've got to put your thoughts away and just trust and follow. And I think your authentic life is going to lead you where you need to be if you go with it. Make sure I didn't miss anything that I wanted to say on there. Nope, that's it. All right, so let's go to the second. Your pursuit is not pointless. So this is one where I hijack the notes. Usually I don't try to make the notes about me, but there was something that I had gone through that had a lesson that I thought could help you. I try to write these notes so that they're timeless, but sometimes that doesn't go that way, and I don't force the notes. I let my notes be fluid and I follow them. So your pursuit is not pointless started with a personal hurdle that I had come up against, and it was just basically a little bit of ego coming in, but being frustrated with the progress or lack of progress that I was feeling with all of my efforts. And that doesn't mean that I feel bad saying that, because I have a lot of great people who are following. You're watching this video today, or maybe you're listening to it on the podcast, you're reading the daily notes, and I got tons and tons of great feedback on the daily notes that I was not expecting at the conference, which was before I wrote this. So maybe part of the conference was to reiterate what I wrote on this. But long story short, in the moment, I was a little frustrated that I wasn't getting traction that I saw other people getting. And I kind of felt like, I have the ability to help other people break through and get to where they want to go, but I'm not where I want to be. And what I had to realize and remind myself is that things take time, and that this will play out the way it needs to be. And I am going back to my why. I'm doing the daily notes. I'm talking about spirit, mind, body, and money because I love it. This is my passion. So when things go to where I think they might go or where I want them to go, it doesn't matter. So my pursuit is not pointless. And in the post, I have the Jack Butcher illustration that I love. I had it made into a canvas, but basically it's, Jack Butcher Visualized Value, black and white. It's a series of lines that are all the same, really, really short. And then it starts to ramp up, which represents growth or whatever you need it to be. For me, it's growth. And about 3 or 4 lines before the growth happens, he writes, "This is pointless." And that is where a lot of people give up. And I don't want you to give up on your pursuit if it's not going as fast as you think it might be, because we don't get to determine how quickly things go. We get to determine how much effort we put in and what we're doing and making sure it aligns with our authentic life, aligns with our passions, but we don't get to determine when we get to see that growth. We just have to keep on going. And if we go back to the earlier post, if your why is you're not worried about the money, if this is something that you would truly do for free, then when that growth comes, shouldn't matter. But we're all human, we have these emotions, and thankfully one of the characteristics that I have and I've always had is I can recognize things really quickly and get past them. So I recognized that I was feeling this way, and I very quickly checked myself, reminded myself of my why, that the growth doesn't matter and that I'm doing this for a bigger reason, and then reminded myself also of all of the great feedback I got prior to going to the conference. So one of the key things is having that self-awareness to recognize, all right, I'm going down this path of whatever that thinking might be. For me, it was frustration, and which was stupid, and pulling myself back and refocusing. So there's a few things that I mentioned at the end I want to hit on in today's video, just in case you don't go read that note, but it's not very long, that I think can help you when you get to these moments of this is pointless, as Jack Butcher framed it. First off, have a strong sense of self-awareness. Just understanding your thoughts and being with yourself, being present to realize that you're feeling this way so you can check it. That could be meditation can help, journaling can help. I'm working on this with Roman. Roman is an emotional basketball player, and he lets his emotions get the best of him. I heard Phil Jackson talk about in an interview how he had Bulls players, when they started to bring mindfulness and meditation to the basketball court, wear rubber bands. And whenever they would start to lose their emotions, they would snap the rubber band, and that snap would bring them back into the present moment and get them refocused. I'm going to do that with Roman to see if it helps. But it's having that self-awareness. So the rubber band is the snap that brings the self-awareness of, hey, I'm starting to trend down this direction, pop myself, come back present, remind myself of the things that are really most important, and then go back to where you're going. So have a strong self-awareness, and I think meditation and journaling are great ways to begin to recognize that, so you can notice those feelings when they come, and then do what you need to do to recenter yourself. Surround yourself with great people. That week I had an awesome conversation with two friends that kind of recentered me, helped me think about new ways to navigate through, and what are some things I could do to maybe help the pursuit move a little bit faster, but not making that the focus of things. So great people who are going to support you, who are going to love you, but also speak truth to you are very important. If you go back to pursuit, PRST, R is for relationships. Relationships are very important on our pursuit because you need people to help you, support you, and also be honest with you from time to time, and smack you in the face if you need it. Remember what passion means. So again, your why. We can skip that one because we've already hit that. Be grateful. There's a note that came out after this video was supposed to be done. So next week's Beyond the Notes, I'll talk about it. But you can find gratitude to find your optimism. It's a Michael J. Fox quote that I didn't say properly here. I will in next week's note. But use gratitude to remind you. So yes, do I have the biggest podcast audience? And I don't even care about the biggest podcast audience. Is my podcast audience where I think it should be or where I would want it to be? No. We always want to be bigger and impacting more people's lives. But I have religious people who listen every time. I can see the numbers, and I can see that they're always showing up. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that the daily notes are over 1,000 subscribers, which is crazy to me, and it continues to grow. So there's plenty to be grateful for, to recenter and say, okay, this isn't pointless, and it takes its own time. But be grateful and recenter yourself around that. Express joy. Be happy with the things that you're doing. I get to write and do these things that I absolutely love. Who cares how long it takes? So express joy and use joy on your definition. Don't allow, again, someone else's definition of joy or what you should be happy about determine where you are on your pursuit. Create a swipe file. So I have screenshots of all of the great compliments I've received. If you have sent me an email or a DM or a text message, I have a copy of it. Not that I'm going to share it publicly, not that I'm even going to use it for a testimonial per se, but just for when you have those moments of where you get a little down and you doubt yourself, you go back and you pull those up and remind yourself, okay, the goal is for impact, right? All right, I've impacted one person, two person, 10 people, two person. But keep a file of those things. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't read them every single day to build your ego up. Use them for a moment where you need to just remind yourself that you're having the impact that you seek, and allow it to give it more time. Your pursuit is not pointless. Remind yourself of that regularly, and then go through and do some of those things, or create your own list of things to recenter yourself when you have that moment, because you will have that moment. The key is not to stay there. It's to recognize it, get out of it as quick as possible, and go back to doing the thing that you love because you love it, because it's your passion. All right, next up we have don't aim to be the best. I was listening to a Rich Roll podcast, which if any of you out there have a connection to Rich Roll, please connect me. I would love to have a podcast conversation with him. I think it would be great. We have a lot of similarities. We have enough differences to where I think it would be a great conversation, and I think he would enjoy it. But he had Kevin Kelly on his podcast, and the intro to the podcast hooked me right away because they used this quote. Kevin said, don't aim to be the best, aim to be the only. Now, obviously, you can be the only version of you, so be the best version of you, and that's taking care of your self-minded, spirit, mind, and body. But when it comes to like how you identify yourself, whether it's professionally or as a parent or a spouse, whatever it may be, don't try to be the best, be the only. And you can be the only of anything. I'm a financial advisor, but I could be the only financial advisor that talks about spirit, mind, body, and money in the way that I do. There's other people who talk about it as well and have life planning and those things, but no one does it the way I do it. So be the only version of whatever it is that you are, that's in your authentic life. And when you're the only, if you want to benchmark yourself as the best, you are the best by default. But don't strive to be the best, strive to be the only. Do things the way only you can, and no one else can match that, and that's going to bring you to be the best version of yourself for everybody else, which we know is one of the best things we can do for the world. So I love that quote, and I highlighted in it, I wrote something that said, the pursuit of being the only gives you the freedom to define success, while the pursuit of being the best is confined to the definition of others. So again, another reason to stay away from trying to be the best is usually benchmarked by other people's definitions. When you are trying to be the only, you have the freedom to define the success for you. I want to be the best dad ever, and the best dad ever looks like, I want to be the only dad for Roman, Leo, and Silas that does this. And then that will make me the best dad for them. So being the only gives you freedom. Trying to be the best kind of constrains you a little bit to what society says the best is. And I think freedom is better for you as you go on your pursuit. As we head to May 4th, may the 4th be with you on that day. And actually that was the first day of the conference, and they had Star Wars people at the opening night, which is really cool. They did that last year as well. So know thyself. Later on the day, when I wrote this on the 5th, I was going to be speaking on my panel. And the panel was about authenticity, unapologetically being yourself, and how that can help you grow your business as a financial advisor. And I'm thankful that I learned to be myself when I started my firm. But as I was thinking about the presentation and overnight while I was sleeping, it came to me that the reason that a lot of people struggle being authentic is they don't know who their authentic self is. They don't know who they are, or they haven't accepted and they haven't learned to love themselves. So if you don't know your authentic self, then you pretend to be somebody else trying to figure it out or seek the approval of others. Or if you've identified your authentic self and it's not who you think the world wants you to be, maybe you haven't loved it enough to really embrace it. So you can't be your authentic self. You can't be authentic if you don't know your authentic self. And how do you get to know that? Well, that's where the connection of spirit, mind, and body really comes in. When you align those things, you have a better understanding of who you are. The next step is loving who that is, accepting it, being happy. Because as you know, I've talked about it before, happiness comes from within. And when you get to that moment, then you can be authentic. Because part of the reason that people won't fully be themselves is they're afraid of what other people might think. So I won't fully be me because somebody might not like this thing about that. But when you are happy from within, and you know yourself, and you accept yourself, and you love yourself, then you know you're not going to be the person for everybody. And that's okay. And you accept that. And then you can fully be yourself. You can be authentic because you're not worried about pleasing everybody. You know that there are people who are unhappy that are going to find reasons not to like you. Or maybe you're just, not going to mesh with somebody. That's okay. As long as you're not being a jerk. So get to know yourself, and that will help you be authentic. And authenticity, although it is a buzzword, is very, very important. Think of the people you would characterize as authentic. They usually attract people. They probably are charismatic. And not because they try, but I think there is something about being authentic and the energy that it puts out that attracts people to it. People like to know that the person they're dealing with is really the person they're dealing with, but I also think it brings people who wish they could be more authentic to them in hopes that they learn something or that authenticity rubs off on them. So know yourself, accept yourself, love yourself, and then put it out there, and you will be authentic. And everybody tells you should be authentic because it really is important. All right, and on the 5th, we go to the May 5th, our final one for this Beyond the Notes. Share your passions. The reason I wrote this was the night before, I had an amazing conversation at dinner. The AGC, my community for financial advisors that I co-founded, we had about 20-some members there. We had a big dinner, and I had an awesome conversation that was tied to spirit, mind, body, and money. Mainly spirit and mind. And the conversation would not have happened had I not shared with this individual my passion for spirit, mind, body, and money. And that opened up the conversation to go down a path I would have never imagined. That was really amazing. And it was the whole dinner. And the crazy thing is I almost didn't sit in the seat to be able to have this conversation, but the way the universe works, it was meant to be, and that's where I sat. But again, if I wouldn't have shared this, if I'd have answered the question with, things are good, and that was it, and I didn't go into how excited I am about pursuit and daily notes and these videos and the podcast and what it is I'm doing and how it ties into RLS Wealth and the future of RLS Wealth, if I wouldn't have gone into that, we would have never gone down this path that really gave me more confidence about the path that I'm going down. So share your passions. Share your passion. Share the work behind your passion, give it to the world, but also share why it's your passion. Once you get talking about it, the excitement should drive up, the energy behind it should let the person know that, hey, this is really something that I care about, and share it with them. Because they might be on the same wavelength as you and you don't know it if you don't share. I've had many conversations come up in client meetings in the spiritual realm that I would have never imagined, but it's because we got talking about daily notes and what it is I'm doing. Secondly, if you share your passions, there might be people who, now that they know what your passion is, are in a position to help move you along your pursuit. But if you keep it to yourself, they'll never know. So share your passions and good things will come from it. And again, it might just be a good conversation, but it also might be opportunities to move you further along in your pursuit, connect you with somebody else who might put you further on your pursuit. It's good to share these things with them. Also, be willing to listen to their passions as well. Don't just talk about yours nonstop. Give time to listen to them as well, and allow them to share your passions. And you'll find out that you may have more in common with more people than you realize if you just put it out there. Because again, energies attract. You're attracting people for a certain reason. All right, again, apologize for the Beyond the Notes being a few days late, but appreciate you tuning in. We'll have another one this Friday, no reason for that to miss, and I hope that you're enjoying the daily notes. Yep, that's it for the day. Not a smooth ending, but that's okay. Being authentic, right? Silences at the window caught my attention and threw me off. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for reading the daily notes. Thanks for all of the great feedback. If you are somebody who came up to me at the conference, thank you. I appreciate you. You don't know how much your words meant to me and how unexpected they were. So it was very awesome to hear that. Thanks for joining me on my pursuit. It is an honor to be a part of yours, and let's keep pursuing.